Change within an emergency service organization is like none other. We are all type A personalities, and we all only really want to see change if it affects us in a positive manner. Of course, nobody wants to have a change that affects them in a negative manner. But the way we have to think about an emergency services organization is we're all type A personalities. We all have the same common goal, but the problem with most emergency services organizations is the fact that we get complacent with where we're at in our careers. We like the fact that we show up every third day, we do our jobs, and we get a guaranteed paycheck, we have a pension. We love those things. The problem is we don't like to see change of how things run. We like to know that we know exactly what's going to happen when we show up at work the next day, aside from the calls. So that is kind of the problem with emergency services organization change and change anytime. People will automatically reject it just because the word change itself. But there's many ways to implement change effectively. But in my opinion, the first thing you got to do is you got to find the problem. And when I mean that, I mean you got to find why you're doing the change. Most people just either they want to change or they're trying to fix a problem, and that's what you have to figure out. If you don't figure out why you're doing the change, then what's the purpose in doing it in the first place? So you need to figure out why you're doing it first, figure that out. And then the second thing is to make a plan. Make a plan of how you're going to implement the change and how you're going to phase this change that you have in mind in. You can't just drop it on your employees or your personnel right away. That's just causing you disaster. Then you have to become a motivational speaker. You have to convince them of why this change is good for their department, for their organization, and for them ultimately, because that's really what they're caring about. They're thinking about them. They're trying to look out for themselves, and you can't blame them for that. Everybody does it. So once you have your idea and your plan together, and now you start to become a motivational speaker, that's when you start getting people on your side. And what I mean by that is you have to find the right leadership. You have to find the leaders that will help you take the plan from nothing to everything and help implement that change. I mean, yeah, you can rule by an iron fist, but I don't think many people like to do that. So you have to find the leaders that are going to do that for you, that have that good leadership, that have that connection with the personnel in order to make it happen. Leadership is the key to any change is leadership. You got to have good leadership in order for anything to happen. What's my perspective on change? It's kind of what I just said. That's how I think change should be done. I think it should be more or less trying to fix a problem than it is actually trying to just change something little here and little there because you don't like the way it is. I'm a firm believer in that it needs to be an issue before you go and reenact change because people don't realize how hard change really is. It can happen. It does take a lot of time and effort and heart in order to implement it correctly, but it can happen and it's not unearthly for it to be done. So just remember that.